Something is happening. And if you found this video, chances are you've already felt it. Maybe it started quietly. A strange restlessness. A feeling that the life you were living, the one you were told to want, no longer fits the way it once did. Maybe you started asking questions you couldn't silence. Questions about who you really are, about what any of this actually means, about whether there is something deeper, something more beneath the surface of ordinary life. You are not alone. All over the world, millions of people are waking up to the same feeling. A quiet but undeniable sense that reality is not what we were taught, that something ancient is stirring, and that humanity may be standing on the edge of something extraordinary. Throughout human history, people have used many words for this experience: enlightenment, liberation, awakening, gnosis, mystical union. The words change, the languages change, the centuries change, but the experience remains strikingly, hauntingly similar. A moment, or a long, slow unraveling, where something inside the person shifts, where they see themselves and the world differently than before. But here is what most people misunderstand about awakening. It does not begin with answers. It begins with questions. Questions like, why do I feel like something is missing, even when I have everything I was supposed to want? Why do the systems and structures I was raised inside feel hollow now? Who am I beneath my job, my reputation, my history, my name? These are not signs of instability. They are not signs of weakness. They are the earliest tremors of something waking up inside you. So what does awakening actually look like? Not in ancient texts or philosophical treatises, but in real, everyday human lives. It often begins with a disconnection. The things that used to excite you no longer do. The conversations that used to satisfy now feel shallow. The goals you were chasing begin to feel like someone else's goals. Many people describe a growing sensitivity to energy, to other people's emotions, to the quality of the spaces they inhabit, as if a volume dial has been turned up on something they always had but never noticed before. Then there are the synchronicities. You think of someone and they call. You come across the same symbol, the same number, the same phrase, over and over again, in ways that feel too precise to be coincidence. As if the universe is trying to get your attention. There is also a growing hunger for meaning, not just for success or comfort, but for purpose, for depth, for something real. Many people in the middle of awakening find themselves drawn, almost magnetically, toward meditation, toward philosophy, toward nature, toward ancient wisdom, toward anything that feels more true than the world they've been living in. And perhaps most telling of all, a quiet but profound loss of interest in the things the world told you to chase. The status, the approval, the accumulation. Not because those things are wrong, but because something deeper has begun to call. These experiences have been described across thousands of years, across every culture on Earth. They are not symptoms of a broken mind. They are signs of an expanding one. Nearly every great spiritual tradition in human history has spoken about an inner awakening, a remembering, a return to something that was never truly lost, only forgotten. Jesus of Nazareth did not only speak of heaven as a distant place. He said something far more intimate than that. He said the kingdom of God is within you, not outside, not in a temple, not in a doctrine, within. The Buddhist tradition speaks of Buddha nature, the idea that every being already possesses the seed of enlightenment. That awakening is not the acquisition of something new, but the recognition of something that was always there, hidden beneath the noise of the thinking mind, beneath the stories we tell about ourselves. The ancient Hermetic tradition, preserved in texts thousands of years old, carried a single foundational teaching: know thyself. Not as a philosophical exercise, but as the very path to understanding the nature of existence itself. To know the self deeply, the Hermetics believed, is to know the divine, because the two are not separate. The mystics of nearly every tradition, the Sufi poets, the Christian contemplatives, the Kabbalists, the Vedantic sages, all pointed toward the same inner landscape, a place beyond thought, beyond identity, beyond the constructed self, where something ancient and luminous waits to be recognized. These were not myths invented to comfort the frightened. These were maps. Maps drawn by those who had gone inward and returned with something they could barely put into words, but could not stop trying to share. So, if awakening is ancient, if humans have been experiencing this for millennia, why does it seem like so many more people are experiencing it now? Part of the answer is information. For most of human history, the kind of wisdom we've been discussing was available only to a few, preserved in monasteries, guarded in mystery schools, passed quietly from teacher to student in traditions that valued silence and secrecy. Today, a person sitting in a small town anywhere in the world can access the Upanishads, the Tao Te Ching, the Gospel of Thomas, the teachings of Rumi, and the neuroscience of meditation, all before lunch. The great inner library of humanity has been thrown open, but information alone does not explain it entirely. Something else is happening. Something that has to do with pressure. When the old structures of life begin to crack, when the systems people trusted begin to fail them, when the narratives they were given no longer hold, humans instinctively begin to search deeper. The last several years have handed humanity an extraordinary amount of disruption, uncertainty about the future, isolation, collective grief, the collapse of things many people believed were permanent. And with that disruption has come an invitation. Not a comfortable one, but a real one. To stop outsourcing meaning to external things and begin finding it within. There is also a growing exhaustion with performance, with the version of yourself you maintain for the world, with the relentless pressure to be productive, impressive, successful, content, all at the same time. Underneath that exhaustion, many people are beginning to ask a question that cannot be unsent. Is this it? Is this really all there is? And that question, that simple, devastating question, is the doorway. But I want to be honest with you about something. Awakening is not always beautiful. Not at first. There is a phase, and many of you watching this may be in it right now, that feels less like illumination and more like disintegration. The beliefs you built your identity on begin to feel unstable. The relationships that once felt central begin to shift. The version of yourself you have always presented to the world begins to feel like a costume you no longer know how to wear. Many people in this stage feel profoundly alone. Not because they are surrounded by fewer people, but because they can no longer pretend to be satisfied by conversations that used to be enough. There is a particular loneliness in outgrowing a version of yourself before you have fully inhabited the next one. Some people describe it as grief, mourning for certainties that have dissolved, for the simpler time before the questions came, for the self they used to be, even if that self was never fully real. The spiritual traditions knew this stage too. They called it different things. The dark night of the soul, the void, the wilderness. Every map of the inner journey includes a passage through darkness. Not because darkness is the destination, but because it is the threshold. If you are in that place right now, let this be a reminder. What you are experiencing is not a breakdown. It is a breaking open. And there is a difference. Every tradition, every map, every mystic who has walked this road before you arrives eventually at the same conclusion. The thing you are searching for is not out there. It never was. The kingdom, whatever name you give it, is within. This is not a metaphor designed to pacify you. It is one of the most radical, most quietly revolutionary ideas in the history of human thought. Because if it is true, if what you have been looking for in achievement, in love, in belonging, in meaning, if all of that is actually a reflection of something you already carry inside you, then the entire direction of the search changes. You stop looking outward, and you begin looking inward. Not in withdrawal from the world, but in the way an explorer looks inward, with curiosity, with courage, with the willingness to encounter whatever is there. Meditation becomes less about relaxation and more about exploration. Silence becomes less about the absence of noise and more about hearing something that was always speaking, just too quietly to catch over the noise of daily life. The questions that once felt like problems begin to feel like portals. Who am I, really? What is awareness itself? What is this experience of being alive, right now, in this body, in this moment? These are not questions for philosophers alone. They are the questions at the beating heart of every genuine spiritual tradition that has ever existed. And they lead, when followed deeply enough, to something that can only be described as coming home. Perhaps what we are witnessing right now is not something entirely new. Perhaps humanity is remembering something it has always known and has periodically forgotten. Something about the nature of consciousness itself, about the depth that exists beneath ordinary awareness, about the kingdom that has always been waiting within. Awakening is not about escaping the world. It is about seeing it more clearly. It is about moving through life not as a sleepwalker following a script written by others, but as someone who is genuinely present, genuinely alive, genuinely aware. And here is what I believe with everything I understand about this. Every single person who turns inward, who chooses curiosity over comfort, depth over distraction, truth over performance, contributes something to the whole. We are not isolated beings having separate private experiences. We are part of something larger. And when enough individual lights are lit, the collective begins to see in the dark. So if you felt something watching this video, a recognition, a stirring, even just a quiet yes, trust that. The questions that brought you here are not accidents. The longing you carry for something deeper is not a flaw in you. It is a compass. And it is pointing inward. Keep seeking. Keep questioning. Keep going deeper. The kingdom is already within you. It always has been.